Welcome to the Metal Mixtape here on KSQ 89.5 FM Ashland, Oregon, 94.1 FM Medford, Oregon, and streaming online on kskqdjramo. It's the boys, God. We got the legendary, badass, one of the most brutal, fucking awesome dudes in fucking metal. I've been waiting for this moment since I saw him at Ozfest 2004 when I got into metal. We have the one and only Jamey fucking Jasta. How's it going, my friend?
Very good, man. Thanks for having me on, and thank you for the kind words. Much appreciated.
Oh, bro, dude, seriously, man, like, you've been a huge pioneer in my life, growing up for heavy metal, and just everything you've done with just like with Hatebreed, record labels, with Milwaukee Metalfest, man. You are a true entrepreneur that me, myself, you know, not only do I do radio, but I play in a band. I throw my own festivals here in Oregon, and me talking to you right now is like talking to you to a hero, man. So the pleasure is all mine.
Well, thanks so much. No, that means a lot to me, and I think it's great what you're doing, supporting the scene and your community out there. We always have great shows out there, and that's what I'm trying to do with Milwaukee Metalfest, and then also I just picked up the rights to March Metal Meltdown for New Jersey.
Oh, fucking sick!
Yeah, it's the more the merrier. I believe in abundance, and I think there's enough to go around for everyone. And I gotta say, the support for this festival. I mean, I wish we could have had like 10 stages. We had 400 submissions. We could only choose about 74. Well, 175. The Chicago band Aftermath just had to cancel, but we're actually gonna give a couple of the groups 5 minutes longer in their set time instead of adding a replacement. But yeah, it's made me think about the future, and it's also given me a lot of great just knowledge into the subgenres that I don't normally keep up with, and there's so many exciting bands. I'm sure you guys are playing a bunch of them, but for me, being on the road and doing the podcast, and then also curating this festival, it hasn't been exactly easy to keep up with all the various different heavy music subgenres. But now that we've gotten some of the best and the brightest, it's really inspired me to now want to go do new records and take some of these bands out on our Hatebreed tour that we're going to do later this year. So it's just a really fun, exciting time for heavy music in general.
Dude, that is so fucking badass to hear, you know. And, you know, one of the things, you know, especially when I hear you talking about everything you're doing, it's like I always think about, like, what's going on through your head, you know. I'm guessing that you're constantly creating, you constantly have all these structures and all these ideas, because like you said, you know, you're all these festivals and just, you know, being in the scene is giving you this opportunity to listen to all these genres that you've never got into. So Jamey, like, you know, like, you've been doing music for 30 years. You've been doing all, you know, and now like you're becoming, like, not becoming, but you already are, just like, you know, you're becoming this producer, this gardener of metal, man. Were you, as a kid, were you always just an idealist, where you're always just thinking of ideas and wanting to create, or was this something that maybe you grew up with inspiration of your family or your friends? Like, were you always like this before, you know, you got not all this attention, but all this success?
Yeah, I always had crazy ideas, and I would pitch them, and a lot of times they would get, you know, cold water thrown on them. And I think that's good early on. I think some of that adversity really sort of helped me not only be able to take the rejection, but know that on the other side of a lot of that rejection are people who will believe in you and people who will ride with you. And for every 10 that say no, there's a really one or two important ones that will say yes, that can help you not only compound the overall energy, but also give you that next give you that look down the next path. And one of the best, I think, most recent example of this was I was going out to Vegas to do the podcast. I had a bunch of guests booked, and I was staying at the Tropicana, and I was going to just produce it myself. I ended up not having a camera guy and not having an engineer, and I said, fuck it, I'm just gonna bring the laptop and the preamp, and I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna see who I can get. And D. Snyder from Twisted Sister was one of them. And I was telling my friend, you know, he's like, he's a big Twisted Sister fan, but he's like, I don't think, you know, D's done a Broadway album. I don't think he's interested in metal. And I was saying he has the best voice for metal. He has to be able to do something in metal before he calls it quits. And I'm going to pitch him this album, and I want to produce it. And I almost didn't produce it because I almost didn't pitch the idea because some people had said to me, well, if he shuts you down on the podcast, what are you going to do? Are you going to just take the embarrassment, take the rejection? I said, yeah, you know what? If he does it, it'll be actually good for the podcast. It might be a little cringe or it might be a little disappointing for some people, but at least it'll get people listening to the show and it'll be a conversation starter because we had already sort of pitched this idea to Sebastian Bach and unfortunately he didn't go for it. But once I pitched it, he agreed to it, and then when the album came out and he started getting millions of views on the YouTube videos and millions of streams, and he started getting headline offers at the big European festivals and even some of the U.S. festivals offered him really good slots, all of a sudden other rockers and other solo artists started contacting us, and even Sebastian Bach, you know, had hit us up and said, wow, great job. This record is incredible. And so for every whatever 100 meetings I had taken before that and for every pitch that people sort of threw the cold water on the idea before that, that one made it all worth it. And that led us to doing Corpse Finders self-titled album and now Ripper's Return to Death Row EP and also this Jasta for All record, which I'm going to put out over the summer. So it's really exciting, and sometimes you got to take those risks. You know, financially, it was a big risk because I had funded the D album myself and shopped it around, and a lot of labels turned it down. You know, who's gonna be interested in this? You know, and I'm like, you don't understand. He's one of the greatest voices in rock and metal, and people want to hear him singing over these heavier types of songs. And so we got to prove the naysayers wrong, and hopefully we're going to do the same now, like with Milwaukee Metalfest, and keep flying the flag for all these different bands. And this will be an opportunity for the label to put out live records because that's some of the comps that I grew up listening to were live at Milwaukee Metalfest or the Milwaukee Metalfest sampler compilations that exposed me to a lot of bands. And so I just want to put the ladder down where I can because guys like D. Snyder did it for me and also bands like Slayer and Slipknot and Sepultura, all of which at one point have either played Milwaukee Metalfest or had members play at Milwaukee Metalfest in other bands.
Dude, that is so absolutely incredible, you know. It's awesome. I did listen to Return to Death Row by Ripper Owens, and dude, that album is fantastic. And the fact, you know, I admire you a lot, man, because it sounds like you take every venture with precise precision, you know what I mean? And I love the fact that you said, like, you know, for every 10 naysayers, you always have that one important person that will help you boost your confidence and believe in you and push you forward, you know, because I feel like somebody in your position has to be extremely resilient, extremely thick-skinned because like you said, you know, you did the D album and you're having to talk to all these labels and you know it's a great album. And I love D. Snyder. I grew up, years ago, JJ French gave me my first break on radio and those, you know, and just seeing how like those guys believe in you and inspire you. Do you still get mind blown anytime you have like a new accomplishment or you're talking to new artists? Do you still get like that those goosebump feelings anytime you accomplish things, or is this just got normal for you?
Yeah, no, I still do. I mean, even just recently having Marty Friedman and Billy Sheehan and others on my podcast, especially like Ann Wilson, who's a legend and trailblazer. She was open even to our ideas of branching out and doing heavier music. So anytime like that, where you know, you're pitching these ideas, some people are going to get very triggered by that. They're going to go, oh, he's an opportunist. It's all about money. But really, it's all about the creative. creative part, and you have to be able to put some skin in the game. And when you're pitching these ideas, you're putting actual skin in the game, whether it's financially or whether it's time you'll never get back. And the people don't see all the work behind the scenes. And it's important to know that you have to push through those low energy moments, those low vibrational moments where you think this isn't going to work. Because I always say it's not win or lose, it's win or learn. Yeah. And I think, and it's funny you mentioned JJ French, because I think a lot of roads have led back to JJ French. He's another trailblazer and a great podcaster in his own right and a great guitar player. I interviewed with him when we were looking for managers for Hatebreed back in the mid-90s, and went up to his apartment in New York City, and that was a great, eye-opening experience of wow, this is the type of life you could live if you work hard and you write good songs and you're a road dog. And everyone's heard that inspirational Twisted Sisters story of just slugging it out in the clubs and having every record label pass on them, and then becoming a huge staple at MTV. And this morning I was reading an article about MTV finally laying off the last of the MTV News employees, and I was thinking back of all those news stories that they would break, and I thought, yeah, it's done, it's over. They kicked down doors in a way for us to do our podcast and our Patreon shows and radio shows like yourself. But now it's there's less and less gatekeepers. And so when one door closes, another opens. It's we have to start really looking at these opportunities and not missing them. And the fact that these legacy media outlets are going, to the wayside is great opportunities for everybody. We really need to look at it as high tide raises all ships, not there's no more interest in music news, because there obviously is. It's just people are getting it from elsewhere, and people monetizing it in a different way. And so having, done my podcast and now done my Patreon show, which I do a weekly news show called the Weekly Metal Roundup at patreon.com/Jasta, I've been put on to all these great sites that you would never hear of in mainstream legacy media, and we need to amplify those voices, amplify the people that are putting in the work to help promote the bands that are out there doing good things and saying good things and making great songs and putting on great live shows, and putting an emphasis on the media, the smaller radio stations, the smaller radio shows, the smaller media outlets, the fanzines, and the stuff that really brought us to the table in the early days, because it's going back to that.
So fucking sick, Jamey. I'm fucking getting inspired over here, man. Before we get into Milwaukee Metalfest, because there's a lot to dive in, I wanted to say one more quick note on JJ French, is that he's the first person to ever put me in check. And what I mean by put me in check, he's the first person who ever had me write down all my station numbers, all the interviews I do, the purpose. He's the first person who made me lay out my whole pitch to how to get interviews, and he really inspired me, because he was hard on me for the first time, but in only a way that will benefit me. And when I came back to him 6 months, he talked to me for an hour and a half. And because he told me, he's Omar, you have to work hard. You need to be able to show what you can offer, how you can help bands, how you can help music. And in my head, I was just dude, I needed that. I needed that tough love, because I actually attribute a lot of my success to him being like that. And him being such a hard worker and such a pioneer, and him telling me how Twisted Sister would play multiple shows a night. And just the work ethic that they had. So I think that's really, it's really beautiful to hear you say all these great things about all these musicians that push you, because Jamey, hearing you talk, you're fucking screaming, and you're screaming this inspiration, you're screaming this passion, you're screaming the direction that metal has been going to stay healthy, and it's just truly inspiring, man.
Well, thank you, and thanks for sharing that, because I think criticism needs to be heard and absorbed and considered when it's objective and when it's, when it's not mean. But sometimes people will construe it as being mean, but again, it's like you have to learn from it, and that's been part of this process with Milwaukee Metalfest. I'm an outsider. I mean, of course, Milwaukee's always been like a second home for Hatebreed, and everybody, I think a lot of bands would agree that Milwaukee's always one of, if not the best show on the tour. But coming from, an outsider's point of view, it was important for me to really immerse myself in the regional and local bands and talk to the rave about, being in this for the long haul and saying, listen, you guys might not have been necessarily an incubator for some of these local and regional bands, but it doesn't mean you can't start. And so part of the reason, like, why we're doing the pre-party with two smaller bands, one of which Yotuma, who is great, who everybody should check out, and also Somnuri, who's great, who has a record coming out on Modern Heavy, is, again, it's like, put the ladder down, try to give these bands a stage to play on and an audience to play in front of, and let's create the Lamb of Gods of tomorrow. Let's help lift up the Hatebreeds of tomorrow and the headliners of the future, and just like, guys like JJ French and Dee Snider and Kerry King and Paul Bostaff and so many others have done for us. And yeah, going back to the criticism, reading some of those early emails and some of those early messages on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, as long as they were constructive, and even some of the mean ones, I would try to learn, and this is a really unique fest because you do have, some of the bands that play the $5 shows in the local arcades and VFW halls and bars, and you have bands that play arena shows and play on huge tours. And one of the big four, and one of the bands that's going to be going out with Pantera later on in the summer into arenas. So we're really spanning not only the generations but the spectrums of the bands who are currently out there right now at every level. Yeah,
dude, it's insane. Like, when I just look at your lineup, because I have your Friday, May 26th, Saturday, May 27th, and Sunday, May 28th up. Like I throw festivals, but I throw like a 1 day, noon to 10 p.m. and it's so much work. Just with I manage 30 volunteers. And then I manage the payroll, I manage all the time slots, I manage all the load-ins, I manage all the digital art, all the video art, all the online promotions, and then all the businesses with the venues. And for me, I'm just like, holy crap! Like the amount of stuff Jasta has to do on this festival must be mind-blowing. The first time you dived in and started really constructing every day. Was it just something you didn't expect, and was it like just like a huge? Because you were saying, you said it was always a home for Hatebreed, but what was it? Were you always used to doing shows, or like a show like this just took a wallet? Because Friday you got Billy Bio and Biohazard, Dark Angels, Dying Fetus, Napalm Death. Saturday you got fucking the massive Anthrax, Suicidal Tendencies, Black Dahlia Murders, Shadows Fall, which I'm super fucking happy is playing shows again. Lamb of God, Machine Gun After the Burial on Sunday. Like where did you start? Did you start on Friday and then move to Saturday and Sunday, or did you start at the headliners? How did you approach this the construction of this festival before you really started getting your full lineups?
Well, first we started with the international bands because we thought that the mandates and some of the travel issues were going to be alleviated earlier than expected, and then when we were faced with delays, we just decided, okay, there's going to be either one or no or none as far as international bands. We did end up getting two. We got Angela Sapatrita coming from Spain, and we have Revenge coming from Canada. Yeah. But all the other ones could not get visas in time, or just didn't want to come based off these mandates and based off the restrictions and the overall expenses being so high for not only traveling internationally but also hotels and things like that. And so we got together with Sound Talent and the team at the rave, who I owe everything to. Sound Talent, Tim, Jackie, Leah, everybody there, and actually a ton of the great booking agents that are out there, like Steph from Continental and Nick Storch and Mike Monarulo. I mean, I could go on and on and on about just the industry people who really got behind us with this and got us this great lineup of bands. And as we rolled it out, I thought, okay, you know what? It's a lot. It's a big undertaking, but I've done it before. I've done Aggressive Music Festival 2 years back in Albany or Central New York, upper. I guess some people call it upstate, but really it's basically near that Cohoes, Clifton Park area. We had Slipknot, Slayer, In Flames, Hatebreed, and then another year we had Mudvayne, Killswitch, Soulfly. So I've done it before. It's a lot of work, but when you're starting out from just Jump Street and you don't have the history and the legacy, it's much different. Like, this comes with not just history and a legacy, but just infamy in general, where so many bands really cut their teeth at Milwaukee Metalfest, and so many people, their first show they ever went to or their first festival they ever traveled to was Milwaukee Metalfest. So wanted to keep with the tradition and have the artists that played at the old school festival, like Dark Angel, who you mentioned, like Violence, like Obituary, but then also have the other classic bands like Suicidal and Anthrax, and then of course, the reason why I'm doing the fest is the Black Dahlia murder. I had pitched Trevor, rest in peace, before he took his own life, I had pitched him the idea and said he should curate it, and he loved the idea. And again, I know I told the story earlier about pitching the D. Snyder for the Love of Metal album idea, but this was another one of those pitches where I thought, do I do this now? Because if Trevor doesn't like the idea, or if we say some things that we shouldn't say on air and it doesn't work out, are we going to look like we dropped the ball? And so I actually kept that episode in the can until I got with the lawyers, got with the previous owners, and got the rights. And then, when I stopped hearing back from Trevor, I started to get concerned. And then, of course, we got this horrible news, and then the fans, said you have to follow through with this, you have to get it done. And so I'm happy we did. It's been a labor of love, but we're still lining up all the vendors and all the food, and we're dealing with all the insurance calls today, which is the next call I got to jump on at 11:30 here my time. So I'm sorry to have to cut this short, but it's all worth it, and it's been great. It's been really rewarding, especially because we've already sold enough tickets for next year to have it come back, and we have a ton of those international artists who are like, we have to do this festival. We want to do it so bad. We're sorry it didn't work out for 2023, but we want to be there in 2024. So the future looks good. We got to just get through this one. But like I said, we hit that ticket threshold, so we're looking to it. And if anybody wants to travel out there for Memorial Day weekend, by all means, go to therave.com/metalfest. But if not, again, I love the criticism as long as it's constructive. I love the ideas or the bands that we need to check out. You can hit us up at MilwaukeeMetalFest@gmail, or you can just hit up any of my socials. It's at Jamey Jasta on every platform except Facebook. It's facebook.com/JastaHQ. And check out the Milwaukee Metalfest Facebook. In a very short amount of time, it's already got over 7,000 fans on there, of which 6,000 have already bought tickets. So we're really appreciative of that. And people like yourself who help amplify, our voice and our mission. Thank you so much.
Jamey, thank you so much for the bottom of my heart, man. I'm going to literally go back to doing my construction work like 10 times more inspired to go through my next festivals. I can't wait to air this on the radio. A true inspiration, man, for reals, man. Every word you said means a lot to me, not only just on supporting Milwaukee Metalfest, but supporting me as just somebody who loves metal. And like I said, we don't want to keep you too long, but would you do me a favor and say this is Jamey Jasta from Hatebreed, and you are listening to the Metal Mixtape?
Sure thing. What is up, everybody? This is Jamey Jasta from Hatebreed, and you're listening to the Metal Mixtape.
Jamey, you have a great rest of your beautiful day. I'll make sure to go online and heart all of your posts, share all of your posts, and tag you with whatever post I do for you, man. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much. You too, brother. Appreciate you.
You too, brother. Bye.
Yeah, bye.